everyone, I'm Beth. Welcome to this mindful yoga practice with me today. This is going to be a yin yoga practice focused on the themes of release and receive. So we're going to be alternating between forward folds and back bends. We're just going to do 4 total poses. They're going to be yin in nature, means we're going for a sense of relaxed stretch. We're going to hold in the poses for maybe about 3 or 4 minutes or so. So a relatively short practice, perfect for a busy holiday season, anytime where you feel rushed or stressed, or need to go inward and reflect outward at the same time. Have your mat. You may wish to have some blocks. You could also have a blanket. Props help support the pose to customize the practice to you. I'll be giving you plenty of variations for each of the 4 poses as we go through. So we are going to start in child's pose. Child's pose is a forward fold and a way for us to go inward. I think I'll use my blanket here. You might want the blocks. I'm going to put the blanket in front of me and keep it pretty folded. So for this version of child's pose, if you'd like to take a open knee or a wider knee position, that creates more room to grow. I'm going to keep my knees closer together. I usually practice wide knees, but I want to try to get a little bit more of a rounded ball version of child's pose. You can decide what works best for you. So we're going to start by hinging from the hips, folding forward. Hips stay back toward the heels. They certainly don't have to touch, and another place for the blanket is right under your heels. In my version, I'm going to bend my elbows so that I can rest my head on my elbows and go for that ball shape. Now another version of this is I can pull the blanket a little closer and rest either my forehead or the top of my head on the blanket, and then stretch my arms back toward my feet. So that's the version where I'm going to stay. I'm going to take off my glasses. If you have glasses, I invite you to take them off as well. You can either have your face down like I'm going to do, or you could have your head to one side, and you might see me turning the head for a time check occasionally. As you start to settle here, let your attention begin to go inward. Allow your breathing to be comfortable. And then we want to grow quiet and still in the pose, but if you find that something is not comfortable and you need to switch your position, go ahead and do that. We want to find a position where we feel a comfortable stretch that we can hold for a period of time. And in this position, the stretch is somewhere around the back body, maybe in the lower back. Perhaps you even feel it up into your ribs, your arms. That's what we're going for. When I prop myself in this way, I can feel a little more space in front of my face to breathe. Each forward fold is our opportunity to reflect. Perhaps here you reflect on what you would like to get from this practice, maybe what led to you choosing this practice today. Then take about 3 more mindful breaths, observing the breath on the in-breath, the breath on the out-breath. gentle inhales and exhales. And then after your next exhale, slowly lift yourself up and out of the pose. When we come out of the postures in yin, it's important to move slowly because we have been holding in a stretch for a period of time. We allow our bodies to readjust. You might sit up on your heels, perhaps an upright kneeling for a moment. And we'll come back down to the mat. We'll swing the legs around. Our next pose is going to be a supported fish pose. I love doing this with the blocks. It is a fairly intense stretch with the blocks, so it can also be done with a blanket. I'm going to show it with the blocks first, get you set up. If you like that version, stay right there. If it's not working for you, hold one moment, and then we'll be going into the version with the blanket. So for this, you'll need 2 blocks. There are numerous ways to do this. The way I like to do it that feels supported but yet relatively gentle too is to take 1 block on the flat position. This will go around the area of my lower ribs. So I'm putting this toward the top of my mat. I'm going to scooch down the mat a little bit. And then the second block I like as a pillow. It doesn't feel like a pillow, it's pretty, it's foam block, so it's not too hard, but it feels good to me right on the back of my occipital lobes. It gives a little pressure into my skull that feels nice. You can use an actual pillow in that place too. I'm going to scooch down a little bit with bent knees, and I'm going to find the spot for the lower block first, adjusting as I need under my ribs. So it's kind of hitting right at the bottom of my shoulder blades, behind my ribs, behind my heart. And then as I come down, I'll find the space for the top block. I like this one on the high height. That feels like that gives me a good amount of support, but you can have it adjusted. I guess this is actually the medium height, the toaster height. Find your pose. So you can see this is a back bend. You can feel the heart opening or see the heart opening. Arms can come out wherever they're comfortable. Legs can stay where they are or stretch out. Watching my wall there, or be in any other shape, such as a butterfly shape. So if this is already feeling like a yummy stretch, and here the stretches are on the front body, the collarbones, the front of the deltoids, stay there. I'm going to come up to show with a blanket. So move my blocks out of the way. The blanket version, grab my blanket. The blanket is going to go in the same place that we had the lower block. So I have my blanket in kind of a square. I'm going to unroll it a little bit so that it forms more of a long rectangle. You can also use a towel for this or something else. And I do have a pillow here, so this time I'll use an actual pillow for my head. So this still goes in the same place under the ribs, behind the lungs, behind the shoulder blades. If possible, I want to stretch my arms above the blanket so that I really keep the blanket under my armpits, behind my heart, around the area of my ribs. Stretch the arms out, find the pillow, arrange the feet. Find your stillness. So yin is different from restorative in that we definitely are seeking a stretch. In restorative, we're melting into the support with no stretch, we're just relaxing. Yin, we're relaxing the body parts that aren't working. In fact, I could relax my legs a little bit more by letting my knees come together. And yet feeling a stretch in the parts of the body we're targeting. Here is the front body. Stay here and allow this open pose to be a pose of reflection for you. And to start to move from reflection to the idea of receiving. When we're open like this, we can really try to allow our hearts to be open and accept what may come. We'll spend another minute or two in this pose. I'm going to go back to the block version, and I'll just show another little variation where you can use block and blanket together. So if you wanted something a little bit more intense but wanted to soften that, you could also take your blanket right over the block, same position that we had before, same block used as the pillow. And maybe even sometimes a higher level of the head with the chin tucked a little bit more toward the chin can feel super nice. Have to rearrange the sides of my blanket out of the way. This is my place. Whenever we give the chin a little tuck toward the chest, we're stretching the back of the neck. That type of stretch can help to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the system in our body that starts to slow things down, to call for the body to move into rest. So even though there's some areas of active stretch in this pose, one of the things we can invite in, that we can receive, is permission to let our bodies be in rest, be still. Just be. You might really feel the breath moving in the ribs, the upper chest, as the back of your ribs are supported. Draw your awareness to the movement of the breath in your body as you take about 3 more breaths here. Letting the exhales in particular release fully from your body. Perhaps extending the exhales a bit longer than each inhale. And then when you're ready to start to come out of this, remember we come out slowly and gently, because sometimes we don't realize how much our body was actually stretching. You can roll to the side or get your arms underneath you. Give yourself a little clearing of the props for our next pose. You may wish to still have your blocks nearby. And option 2, sit on the edge of your blanket. I'm going to go back to kind of a thicker rectangle shape. The shape doesn't matter so much. It's going to be behind me. So we are going to do a wide-legged seated forward fold with head support. We're going back to our forward folding, this time in a seated version. Before I even show the seated version, this is something that can be easily done against the wall as well. I'm not going to show that. I've got stuff on my wall. You scooch up to the wall in a sideways position, swing your legs up and around, and then widen your legs. You won't have the head support, but it'll be easier to widen at the legs than sometimes it is for people seated. Sometimes we don't have that level of flexibility in our legs. Sitting on the bit of the support can help because it makes this a deeper angle between our torso and our legs. I'm going to grab my blocks so they're nearby, support my bottom, and I'm going to move out the fleshy part. So the sits bones, that's the part that I want seated right on the edge here. And I really want to be on the edge so I can get that forward lean. Now I've got straight legs, or straightish, Your legs can be bent any amount. That doesn't matter at all for this pose because it's the forward bending action that's going to be the emphasis of this pose. And if bending them in and of itself doesn't feel good, grab extra blankets, towels, pillows. Blocks can work too. They just might not feel as cozy because they're hard. Again, these are foam, so these don't feel so bad. I'm going to use my blocks for the head support though. All right, so find the position of your legs first. It might help to put your arms by your side. Give yourself a little bit of an upright push, really gentle to make sure you're tall in your torso. And then that fold starts right at the hip crease. We start folding forward. And you fold forward any amount. So there's going to be some compression where your belly, your thighs come together. That is normal. That is expected in yin postures, that we're going to hit that compression point. It's just a little different for everyone. So we're not trying to get our bodies down as far as we can go. If we went to the furthest place, one, that's the place that maybe you're already flexible, and so the yin posture or the yin practice isn't helping you if you're going to your end range and you can already get there easily. And then two, remember, we're sustaining the pose for a bit of time, so we want to be at a place where we can sustain. After you find that forward fold, that is your kind of Goldilocks position, knees bent or straight, then you can allow your head to begin to round with your chin moving toward your chest. And then here's where the head support comes in. And I have 3 blocks. A chair works great here. A stack of any kind of pillows works well too, a bolster. So it doesn't have to be blocks, but we're going to do a little architecture here and build the right level of support. So let's see, I'm going to try a bottom block on the medium height, flat middle block. And then this block is again going to be on the medium height. You might need to hold for stability. And what I'm aiming to do is to support the little space between my eyebrows. So as I hinge forward, I'm going to try to find where I can let that part be supported. And when I do that, again, you might want to hold loosely on your blocks, or maybe your hands can be by your side and you start to release. Now once again, I'm going to take off my glasses. I keep them on for teaching. I don't usually wear them to practice myself, but it helps so that I can see my notes. Let me take them off here so I can show you here. And what you might find is you start off with the block stack or whatever you're using fairly close to your body. But you may notice that as we hold, maybe after minute 1, minute 2, your body releases a little bit more, and perhaps you can slide the stack a little further away. That's not necessary, just something if you notice that release. And same with your legs. Perhaps you start with them bent, and then as we're here, maybe your legs can move to straight. I can do that, but then my block stack needs to come a little closer, so I'll allow that. Arms can rest wherever. This is another one of our reflection poses. So anytime we face in toward the body, gives us more that opportunity to draw our attention inward. Be aware of the present moment. Be aware of our breath. Occasionally checking in with the sensations of stretch. For me, it's the back of the hamstrings, lower back, a little bit around the hips. Making sure that sensation still feels sustainable. It's not moving into more of an out range. We're never wanting that in our practice. And once again, perhaps you notice a lengthening of the exhale as you stay. Maybe even gently encouraging the exhale to be slower simply by releasing the out-breath in a slower pattern. So natural breath in, and then slow, long, emptying breath out. One more full breath cycle on your own. Begin to use your hands to set your torso back upright. When you get to the upright position, stay. Breathe into this tall space for a few moments. These in-between moments of a yin practice are called the rebound. The rebound is the place where we notice, synthesize the effects of our pose. Once again, I'm going to move the props out of the way. You can gently help your legs back in together. Our final pose is going to be a lying pose. We're going to do a supported bridge. So this is another pose that can be done with a blanket or a block. I'm going to use a block because I want a little bit more of a firm support for my body. Again, that might not feel right for your body. A blanket folded to any thickness works just fine. I'm not going to show both because I think it'll be pretty obvious once we set up for the supported bridge where the blanket will go. I am going to keep the block on the low position. Sometimes I practice with the block on the medium position. Since this is the last pose of our practice and one that you can stay in for Shavasana, I'm going to make it a little more chill. Once again, come down, have your block nearby. You can also use more than one block. So if one block doesn't feel like enough support, make a little block platform for yourself. That works too. I'm going to take the feet fairly close to my body, have my block, and then as I lift my hips, slide the block underneath. The place we're looking for is the sacrum. So the sacrum is that triangular shape where the bottom of the spine meets the pelvis. There we go. If it feels like it's digging into your waist, that probably means it's a little bit more high up to your head. You can simply adjust it and move the block a little bit down to your feet. If it's still digging into your waist, option to go to a lower block, put something over the block to soften it, or use the blanket instead. All right, so from here, this is a bridge. So there's an opening in our chest, same kind of stretch that we're looking for around the collarbone, front of the shoulders. The backs of the shoulders rest against the mat. So back bends are stretches for the front body, relaxing for the back body. The back body is sometimes doing the work. In this case, it's the lower body. So that's the legs, the hips. But we've minimized that work. So here, we're not going to feel a lot of the work, the usual work and back bends of the hamstrings. You might feel a little bit. But because it's supported, we're mostly concentrating on that stretch, less on the strengthening part of the back bend. That's why it's a supported back bend. You might wiggle your shoulder blades a little bit more underneath you, encouraging more of the openness across the front. And once again, like we did in our previous back bend, our supported fish, you can maybe really notice the breath in the chest. Maybe you notice it lower more now. So I chose these two back bends because in the supported fish, we were supporting the upper body. In this version, the bridge, we're supporting the lower body. Just a little shift in how you might feel these poses show up for you. Now, another version of this back bend, whether or not you're using the block or the blanket, is instead of having the legs bent, to begin to walk the legs out toward straight. So toward straight doesn't necessarily have to mean straight. You might find with having them about 3/4, either feet resting or on your heels, maybe this feels just more yummy, more receiving, more opening to you. And if you like, you can go further with the feet. Stretching the legs out long also helps to move a stretch down into the hip flexor area. This is an area that can get super tight from all the sitting we do. And because there's muscles, these hip flexor muscles, several of them wrap around and are connected to the lower back. The psoas is one of those muscles. It can move around to the lower back, and we can feel some of that tightness in our low back if our hip flexors are tight. So try this version if you want to get that release. Remember, the parts that we're not stretching can be soft. So there's a tendency to almost kind of grip your toes here. Let your feet be soft. Let your arms be soft. Allow your facial muscles to be soft. Breathe into that openness. Invite in a willingness to receive. Remember that as we hold, if the sensation starts to build too much, so it's feeling less sustainable and or veering off into painful area, we want to readjust. So I'm starting to feel almost an uncomfortable stretch in my low back, a little bit too much effort in my hamstrings. I'm going to slide my feet right back in. I still get the back bend here, but my lower back now can relax and release a little bit more, letting the bottom tips of my rib cage to slip toward the floor, letting gravity be my guide with that. You might wish to add sound into your breath. The ocean breathing, where we can feel a bit of a ha or whisper sound, both on the inhale and the exhale, or focus on the exhale. If you try that with your mouth open on the exhale for a few rounds, try it with the mouth closed, still making that ocean or ha sound on the exhale. If you're doing this practice around a particular time of celebration or a holiday, you might think of what you want to invite in from that event. If it's your New Year practice, how would you like to invite in the new year? If you chose this practice to release something and receive the future, how can your breath help nourish for you that letting go and open to the possibilities of the future? Take one or two more full breath cycles here. If you've reached a place of stillness, a place of comfort that you wish to stay for longer, do stay as long as you like. If you're ready to get up with me, the first step is to gently remove the block. Lift your hips just enough that you can slide it out of the way. If you're using a block, you can probably roll to your side if you're using a blanket, you probably don't need to remove it. Roll to your side. Let the prop stay there as you rest on your side for a moment. Another full inhale and exhale cycle. And then use your hands underneath you to help yourself slowly come up to a seated position. Thank you so much for joining me for this practice. If you like the yin style practice or the slower style, I have other yin practices you can try. If you like the fact that it was short, try some of my other shorter practices. Please do like and subscribe. It tells me that you're watching, and so does comments at the bottom. I love comments and I will definitely reply to you. Have a great rest of your day.